Well, hello and welcome to the Brian Hornback podcast. It's been a while. Matter of fact, I believe this is the first one we've done in the month of November. But we haven't missed a lot. I think I can get us caught up in probably in about 20 minutes. So here, let's start out pretty quick. We never really talked about what happened with the Knoxville City Council elections. Those were on November the November something. Okay, it was the first Tuesday in November. I believe it was the second. Yeah, it was the 2nd of November. As you remember, because we had a lot of discussion about it going on, there was 5 candidates that had been recruited by Eric Wider, who is a licensed real estate agent who's done some political consulting for political candidates, worked with Justin Lafferty when Justin Lafferty won the state representative race out in Hardin Valley. And then he worked with Gina Oster when she came close on that state reps race. And I'm thinking there was another race that he was involved in. But anyway, so he worked with the Scruffy City PAC. That sounds better, doesn't it? He worked with the Scruffy City PAC, which was the PAC that kind of raised the money, that kind of funded the 5 what I've called the challengers. They were also endorsed by the Republican Party chairman, Daniel Herrera, and Herrera had pledged that the Republicans, these 5 candidates, were going to sweep. So when you had in the primary, when the city council when the city council movement candidates were unsuccessful, that let these 5 be the challengers. So the incumbents, the 5 incumbents, kind of realizing what had happened and the fact that the Republican Party was utilizing their 5 candidates to run against the incumbents, then the incumbents pulled. They didn't pull their resources together. They didn't bring their money together, but they did kind of campaign together. They didn't have the same talking points, but they had similar talking points. And so that's kind of what happened. And so it was rather unique. And so, it was really the challengers versus the incumbents. Interestingly enough, the challengers, 4 of them all had the exact same talking points. I got all their push cards, what we call rack cards, push cards, whatever you want to call it, the cards they give out at the doors when they're knocking on doors. And they all had the same talking points, and they even said that in later when the Knox County Republican Party had an event where the 5 spoke. They said we all have the same talking points. So, ultimately what happened was the 5 incumbents all won re-election handily. The 5 challengers lost pretty significantly. Jim Clanaris was close. And I really think that if Jim Clanaris had not tied himself to the other challengers, that he may have been successful. I think that Garrett Holt might have had an opportunity. If you go back 4 years ago, you'll see that Jennifer Montgomery, local realtor, had challenged Gwen McKenzie. She was obviously, Gwen represents a predominantly African American community, and obviously Jennifer Montgomery is white. Garrett Holt was white. It was going to be more difficult to win that predominantly minority base community, and so that was kind of what happened to Garrett. If anybody had asked me before all of the candidates emerged, I would have my experience, which is worth exactly what you're paying for it, which is the fact that you're listening to this podcast. I would have left Tommy Smith and Andrew Roberto alone. If you go back 4 years ago, there weren't necessarily right-leaning candidates against all 5 of these candidates. Okay, um, James Corcoran challenged Seema Singh, um, and, uh, and that was in the 3rd district. In the 4th district with Lauren Ryder, she was up against Harry Tyndall, who was a former Democrat state representative, and also Amelia Parker, who ran as a write-in candidate. Because if you'll remember, Harry Tyndall and Amelia Parker had exactly tied, and so City Council had to break that tie, and they chose Harry Tyndall over Amelia Parker. Amelia Parker then ran a write-in campaign, and then Lauren Ryder won pretty significantly. So you take those 3 candidates, there was not a right-leaning candidate there, whereas you had Jim Clanaris this year, right? Then you look at, of course, Jennifer Montgomery would be right-leaning in the 6th district, okay? And then in the 1st district, you had Stephanie Welch, who's no longer the city council person there, against Rebecca Parr. Neither one of those would have been right-leaning. And then I'm doing this by memory. Andrew Roberto had Wayne Christensen, who it could be argued was right-leaning. It could be argued he was left-leaning. But you know, that's where that's at. So you had Stephanie Welch in the 1st. You had Andrew Roberto in the 2nd. You had Seema Singh in the 3rd. You had then you had Lauren Ryder in the 4th, and then in the 6th you had Jennifer Montgomery and Gwen McKenzie. Hey, I did that pretty good, just from remembering in my head 4 years ago. So again, you could maybe say 2 of those were right leaning, both Corcoran and Jennifer Montgomery, but you couldn't say that all 5 of those that were running, particularly Rebecca Parr, she's not right leaning. Harry Tyndall and Amelia Parker, they're not right leaning. And Wayne Christensen, maybe you could make that argument, maybe you couldn't. Interestingly enough, Mr. Christensen has moved on to Nashville now. So anyway, you really can't contrast and compare 4 years ago to this time. I think from my own perspective, and I've been pretty quiet on this issue about the Republican Party and the candidates and all those kind of things. And August the 14th, I became a member of the Republican State Executive Committee representing the State Senate District 6. So I have a position on the County Executive Committee. So again, from August 14th to current, I really tried to stay fairly well neutral. The field was set, and so it was not my place to criticize the current chairman, criticize the party's positions. I did work hard, I did cast votes on the County Executive Committee, honoring the commitment that they made, and that commitment was to support these 4 or 5. Now, in the general, I had both a supporter of Gwen McKenzie's that advertised her campaign on my website, BrianHornbackdotcom, and Seema Singh also advertised on BrianHornback.com. And I appreciate both those fine ladies for advertising on BrianHornback.com. And, I don't necessarily reject ads unless I have a fundamental disagreement with someone and don't support what they stand for or the positions they take. Then I can make that decision because, the blog is an LLC. It's a business, and I can make those decisions if I choose to. I really haven't had to do that in the past. Have no problem doing it if I have to. But anyway, so we move on. Those folks will be sworn. Those folks will be sworn back in. Tommy Smith will get a full 4-year term now. Andrew Roberto will be sworn in again. Seema Singh will be sworn in again. Lauren Ryder will be sworn in again. And Vice Mayor Gwen McKenzie will be sworn in again. So those 5 folks will now have another 4-year term. 4 of them, the Roberto, Singh, Ryder, and Gwen McKenzie will have another 4-year term. Tommy Smith will get a 4-year term because he obviously went in after Stephanie Welch resigned to go to work for Mayor Kincannon. So a lot of people are automatically saying, hey, let's talk about the mayor's race. Let's talk about the other 4 races, which is the 3 at-larges and then the 5th city council district. But those are in 2023, so let's not jump that far. So what's happened in November politically? Politically here in Knoxville, Knox County. A lot of folks have started, folks who are running for county office next year have already started having some kickoffs, some fundraisers. Started out the month with, and again, I'm doing this by memory, so if I forgot you, please forgive me. But Judd Davis, who's running for General Sessions Court Judge Division 2, that's the position that General Sessions Judge Jeff Emery is going to retire on December 31st. So County Commission in the month of December, which is, I'm recording this on the night. I say the night because if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see it's dark out my window. But County Commission will be interviewing in December, and we'll be making an appointment, I guess, until September 1st, because the primary is May the 3rd, and then the general election is in August. But anyway, Judd Davis had his campaign kickoff and fundraiser. Sharon Frankenberg, Judd Davis works as an assistant district attorney in District Attorney General Sharm Allen's office. Has been there for a number of years. He's running on the Republican primary, as is Knox County Magistrate Sharon Frankenberg. So both of them had their campaign kickoffs, and I assume fundraisers. Chancellor Eddie Pridemore, he had his campaign kickoff and fundraiser. And then Kim Frazier, who's challenging Devin Driscoll for the county commission seat that Justin Biggs serves on today. That's seat 11. That's an at-large county commission seat, and it's Justin Biggs is running for trustee. He's worked in that office for a number of years, more than 12 or 15 years, and so he's running for trustee because Ed Schaus is term limited. So his seat's open. So Kim Frazier's has kicked off hers, and then Devin Driscoll will kick off his in the next week or so. And so she had a big crowd at Bridgewater Place, and his event is in Hardin Valley. It's going to also benefit Toys for Tots, asking people to bring toys for him to then turn over to Toys for Tots for the holidays. Trying to think. Oh, also Judge Bill Ayler, our Circuit Court Judge Division 3, I believe. He had his kickoff also at Bridgewater Place, not the same night as Kim Frazier, but he had a phenomenal crowd. And thanks to Judge Ayler's campaign, they're advertising with me. Thanks for November, December, and January. They're doing a Thanksgiving, Christmas, and a New Year's ad, and so I appreciate that. Also, worthy of note is Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs has kicked off his campaign. He had an event out at, I guess it's going to be an annual event. It was the first annual fall festival out at Oaks Farm in Corrington. And so he had that event, and so he's kicked off his campaign for next year. No announced opponents against both Judge Ayler and Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs. Not sure that it would be smart on anybody to challenge either one of them. But the only judges that I know, and there's a bunch of judges in Knox County if you haven't, and we'll run down that list at some point. But I only know of 3 judicial challenges next year. Okay, Chancellor Eddie Pridemore, he was the Republican that defeated the Democrat Chancellor Darrell Fansler 8 years ago. And by the way, he's on my website, in full disclosure. But he's been challenged by Knoxville attorney Dino Cole and also by former law director Bud Armstrong. And so that race is a 3-way Republican primary race. No Democrats have announced yet. Very few Democrats have announced, but I suspect Matt Shears and the Knox County Democrat Party is working hard to come up with candidates for all these races. Okay. But the other, so that's the chancellor, one of the 3 chancellor positions. Then in the no known challengers in the circuit courts yet, and there's 4 circuit courts. There's 3, and then the 4th one is the family court. And then we have criminal court. Those 3 judges, no known challengers to those 3. And then we have 5 general sessions judges. Okay, I do know that we have 2 of those judges positions that there is some contest in in Division 2, which is the one that I just mentioned, Jeff Emery is retiring on December 31st. Again, as I mentioned, Judd Davis, Sharon Frankenberger in the Republican primary, Sarah Keith, who also works in Sharm Allen's, District Attorney General Sharm Allen's office. She's a Democrat, so she'll be running against whoever is the Republican nominee in August. So that's why it's till September 1st, whoever county commission appoints in December. And I think the deadline for turning in your application or your resume or your letter of interest to the commission, I think that's already passed. But if you're a lawyer and you're interested, you might check out the county commission website or call the commission office at the first of the week. And the first week would be November 29th. And then also in General Sessions Judge Division 5 is Tony Stansberry. And he's being challenged by lawyer Steve Weiner. I hope I said that right, Steve. And so that sets up a kind of our judicial. No one has announced against Charles Susano, the circuit court clerk. No one has announced against Mike Hammond, the criminal court clerk. No one has announced against Sharm Allen, our district attorney general. No one has announced against our public defender. So then that kind of leaves us then with the county clerk, the one that takes your money for your license and gives you your marriage certificates and all that kind of stuff. That's Sherry Witt. No one's announced against her. No one's announced against Nick McBride, the Register of Deeds. No one's announced. Now, Justin Biggs, as I mentioned earlier, is running for trustee. No one has announced. Well, there was somebody that had announced as a Republican, but then they've gone quiet, so I don't know what's going on there. But basically, Justin's the only one that's really raised money and really done anything as far as the campaign. Sheriff, we have the current occupant of the sheriff's office, Tom Spangler, and we have the most recent former sheriff, Jimmy J.J. Jones, who is running for that position again, or has announced his intent, and they've both raised more than $100,000 at this point. So that's going to be an interesting race to watch. So that'll be next year in the primary. Obviously, I already mentioned the mayor's race. No one's announced against him. So I think that's about all of them. I might have missed one or two, but I think I kind of covered them all. And so, again, I'm doing this just by memory. I don't have the list in front of me. But anyway, it's going to be an interesting year. Again, the primary is on May the 3rd, and then the general is in the first Thursday in August. Obviously, we do have school board races coming up. I think we got 4 of those, maybe 5. Yeah, there's 5 of them. And the interesting part about that is that the legislature, in their infinite wisdom, said that we should make those partisan elections instead of nonpartisan. And I put a blog post up not too long ago on BrianHornbackdotcom that talked about the history of that. So go back and look at that because we had partisan elections for school board and school superintendent before 1992. After the law changed in 92 that overhauled education, that changed. And so obviously we now have nonpartisan elections for school board. Legislature says that we can have partisan elections, but I think the Republican chairman says we're going to. The Democrat chairman says he's going to talk to his people first. And so, don't know how that's going to shake out yet. It has cost us to lose one school board member, and that's Virginia Babb. She says she's not a Republican, she's not a Democrat, and she didn't. And I guess she's been told that it would be futile for her to run as an independent, and so she's not going to run again, which is kind of sad, because I think Babb, while I might not agree with her on 50% of the items, 30% of the items, whatever they are, I thought she did a good job. I thought she was conscientious. She wasn't. There's at least 1 or 2 on the commission that they identify as Republican, but they've been on there for a term or 2, and it's like they don't. I don't know. Anyway, I'm close to 20 minutes. I'll get into that later. Remind me to talk about the school board at a later date because that could take a whole nother 20 minutes. But anyway, I apologize that I've been kind of down for the last month, but we're coming back. I'm coming back fast and furious. There's no we. I say we a lot. I think that's just the politician in me. Anyway, I'm coming back fast and furious. I'm going to be on here on a more regular basis, and I thank you for tuning in. I ask you to go check out BrianHornbackdotcom. Check out the stories. Try to get something up on a regular basis, and appreciate those folks that advertise on there and support me and support my alternative journalism that I provide, and it's been going on for 17 plus years. Be 18 years in August, so it's been a good ride, and it's going to continue for some time, contrary to what a lot of folks would like to think. All right, so y'all have a great time. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving, and look forward to talking to y'all again real soon.